Hey, welcome to another edition of the Indoor Environment Show. I'm Bob Krell, founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors Magazine, Healthy Indoors Media. And as always, I'm joined by my co host, Mr. Don Weeks, who is the president of the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance, coming to us live from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And we're in sunny Syracuse. It's actually sunny today here. Weather's good.
Oh,
Your
that's good.
Canadian wildfires have stopped clouding my sky, so we're a little bit better shape now.
Yeah, they're out west now, British Columbia and all that area. So,
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It made it real for us though this year because
yeah,
all these years of hearing about the West Coast wildfires, here on the East Coast, especially for us, we never were or it didn't appear to be impacted by it. That's not to say we didn't weren't impacted a little bit by high levels of PM 2.5, which I think might be in the discussion today.
you never
Anyway,
know.
yeah. So that's yeah. But anyway, I remember the first morning waking up and going out to the orange sky, going, "This isn't
Mhm.
right."
Right. It was
Uh,
a pretty messy deal, to say the least. So it reminded me of the Red Planet or something like that, some science
yeah,
fiction.
what's crazy is my
Mhm.
wife goes, is like, "Is there anything bad?" And I go, I literally took out a laser particle counter and I'm looking, doing that count, doing the PM 2.5 extrapolation. I go, "Yeah, put on a freaking N95 before you go out of the house. The weather is not good out there." So
No, it was pretty
anyway,
pretty messy. So anyway, we have a good show today. Two good eh, recent graduates from Purdue University. First
before you
is
introduce,
sure.
I got to cut you
Yep.
off because I didn't do the plug for our sponsoring
Yep.
organizations.
No
So
problem.
our broadcast, the Indoor Environment Show, is a joint collaboration between ISIAC, the International Society of Indoor Air Quality and Climate, and IEQGA, the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance, and produced by us at Healthy Indoors Media and Healthy Indoors Magazine. Okay, sorry, we're good now.
No problem. We have two good guests today. First one up is Satya Sundar Patra, and he is a graduate research assistant at Purdue University. He's also in the process of earning his PhD in civil engineering. His interest and dissertation is on indoor particle dynamics in residential buildings, from a few nanometers to the lens of micrometers. And I'm sure he'll explain that to us. So, hello, how are you today?
Bringing everybody in here.
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. We're doing fine. And our second guest is Gordon Cross, who has earned her master's degree in environmental and ecological engineering and will continue into her doctor of philosophy and civil engineering this month, August 2023. Her concentration in her research is focused on indoor air quality assessment and impact on human health and well-being. And since 2021, she's been a graduate research assistant at Purdue University College of Engineering. So welcome to you too as well.
And
Hello.
I wanted to point out to everyone that the program, those many of you are watching the show live on the Healthy Indoors Global Community Platform. This is the website. It's global.healthyindoors.com/, over indoor environments. And you can just go on the left tab over and on the browser there and find the Indoor Environment Show. And also, this recording, the video recording, as well as an audio podcast version, will be available there after the program. And it's free. Anyway,
Great. It's always good to have free. There's no doubt about that.
free is better than not free.
You're right. Exactly. All right. So let's. I'm going to alternate between the two of you in terms of questions. So I'm going to start first with Satra. And as I stated in the introduction, you were you started your university education at Indian Institute of Technology (ITT) with a integrated bachelor's degree and master's degree in technology in civil engineering. You're currently attending Purdue University for PhD in civil engineering. Could you tell the audience how each of these degrees are related?
Sure. So, both my degrees at IIT and at Purdue are in engineering. So, in my bachelor's and master's degree, I learned the foundation of engineering, and being in the stream of civil engineering, it taught me how to think critically about engineering better living spaces. Now, in my PhD, I am using those basics to really focus on something that is the quality of air inside living spaces. So for me, in all these degrees, it's like I learned earlier the concepts in my bachelor's and master's, and now using it in application during my PhD.
So, I mean, the first degree that you got out in India Institute of Technology, were you thinking at that point that you might get into something involving indoor air quality?
So when I enrolled, I would say no. Like when I started, it was more like, okay, fine, I'm exploring different options in civil engineering. But then as like I learned more about each of the individual topics, then I got a scholarship to do my research here at Purdue University as an undergrad researcher. So that's when like I thought, okay, fine, I need to do something in the indoor air quality.
Okay, that's good. All right, and Jordan, you started your university education at Florida A&M with a bachelor's degree in psychology. Then you attended Purdue University for a master's of science in ecological and environmental engineering, and you're also earning a doctorate in philosophy and civil engineering from Purdue. Can you tell us how each of these degrees are related?
Yeah, definitely. So I believe that like if you're engineering and designing systems, you should certainly consider these systems and how they affect like the users and the residents in the indoor environment. Of course, indoor air pollutants impact like cognitive function, as we know, and we don't necessarily consider this all the time with like household products and building materials and things of this nature. So I am very interested in like the psychological and physiological aspects of the materials that we use in the indoor environment. So I believe like that's how they are connected, like how these are all intertwined. I'm really interested in how these products, when they're like brought into our homes, how like what like volatile organic compounds impact like our mental health, like how we interact with, I guess how we process like our own emotions, how if they like distract us, if they make our stress levels like change, if they increase our heart rate, if they lower our heart rate, increase our blood oxygen saturation, things like that. And I think that is like directly tied to like indoor air quality and how we can like assess that and monitor that and filter that.
Yeah, that's fascinating, actually. So you're saying like the physiologic components, and I guess it makes sense intuitively that that there is a psychological interconnection between the physiologic effects on the human body through these products. And we've been traditionally very lax on what we bring into our own personal environments. I mean, the workplace in the United States under OSHA, a lot of things are regulated fairly well in a work environment, but in the home environment, the stuff you can buy in off the shelf on a store, our personal care products, and it's crazy, right? Cleaning products, really not.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're pretty obtrusive.
Yeah. And I mean, like right now I'm like just sitting here and I can smell like the conditioner in my hair. I can constantly, like, I'm not even getting used to it. I can just like keep smelling it, like the fabric softener or like the things on my clothes, the coffee I'm drinking. We're, yeah, very relaxed, especially I think in the United States. We're like, I think pretty relaxed about the things that we bring into our homes.
Yeah, in many cases, it's not only things we bring into our homes, but we bring into our workplaces too. I mean, people bring in a canister of Febreze and spray their area, right? I mean, they forget that those are chemicals that they're are now entering into their work zone and others people's work zone as well, and not necessarily well vented workspaces in many cases. So
Exactly.
I named a product. I
was
but I
going
will
to
say
mention
this.
that Procter and Gamble is about to come after us really hard with that. Let's not single them out. There's literally thousands
Many
of
of
products that we
them.
bring in every day.
Yeah, sorry about that, but I will tell my Procter and Gamble friends that I was meaning a wider span of products, not just them. But that is interesting. So basically, you both come from different backgrounds to some extent, but you're also coming to indoor air quality as being, an issue of concern, and certainly that seems to be panning out right now, where there's a lot of interest in indoor air quality. So we'll start with Jordan. With your educational background in psychology and environmental engineering, you became interested in indoor air quality. What's your next steps? What are you planning to do in terms of using that capabilities?
Yeah. So during my master's degree, the last 2 years, I technically graduated my master's degree earlier this month, but the last 2 years we were designing an instrument and like creating an instrument that'll help us basically assess the relationship between the indoor air quality, built environment, products that we bring into our home, and physiological health in human participants.
Mhm.
So that's the next step will be like implementing this instrument, starting our study, and seeing what we can learn from there.
Great, great. So that's
Yeah.
just getting started. You've just started that just recently.
Yeah. Kind of. It's been like a work in progress for the last
You had
2
some
years.
build up
Yeah.
to it. Yeah,
Mhm.
but now you're actually getting to doing the actual
Yes.
experimentation, I guess.
Yeah. So
That's
excited.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Satra, your dissertation for your civil engineering bachelor and master's degrees was assessing personal exposure to PM 2.5 in transport micro environments. Can you kind of describe to us what you were researching about PM 2.5 and personal exposure to PM 2.5? As we were talking earlier, has been very much in the news lately. And I was just wondering how you're relating what you're doing in terms of the dissertation, and where does your research lead from here?
Yeah, so in my bachelor's and master's thesis, we conducted a measurement campaign in India where we collected the PM 2.5 data from the high occupancy bus transits, like the public transits, and also we measured the PM 2.5 exposure for pedestrians in the sidewalks. So in the measurement campaign, it was like about 6 months. We did collection of data in both the buses and for pedestrians. And for pedestrians, we found that for PM 2.5 exposure, there exists a concentration gradient that showed that with increasing height, there is a reduction in PM 2.5 concentrations. And also we found that external factors such as wind speed, the traffic volume, and traffic composition, they do affect this PM 2.5 exposure. For example, higher wind speed would disperse the particles more efficiently, that reduce the overall exposure, and higher traffic volume and some kind of the vehicles can lead to elevated PM 2.5 levels. So that's what were the major findings for the pedestrians. In public transits, apart from PM 2.5, I developed a Wi-Fi MAC scanner. So using a two-level filtration algorithm, we were also getting the data for real-time occupancy inside the public transits, because like it's a high occupancy environment. And one of the major results over there was we found that the PM 2.5 levels inside the cabins of public transits, they are positively correlated to the occupancy, the number of people inside the public transits. So it's like indicating the more crowded the public transits are, the PM 2.5 levels are higher. So these were some of the findings that were in my bachelor's and master's thesis.
So you said, go ahead, Bob. Go
I
ahead.
just add a follow up on that quick. So that makes sense. Well, I just curious, what type of levels typically were you finding in the outdoor environment as far as PM 2.5? And I know that probably varies greatly based on what's going on, but I mean, just give us an idea of what kind of a range you were typically running into.
So these were real-time measurements in 1 minute intervals. So for pedestrians in outdoor environment, the measurements were in India, Chennai. So the levels were about greater than, I would say, 40 microgram per meter cube, somewhere about that. But in closed spaces like buses, we were like getting about more than 50 or 60 microgram per meter cube from there. Yes, that's pretty high.
Okay.
So you said, I believe it was Chennai that you did these experiments in.
Yes.
Have you had any opportunity, or do you know of anybody else who's doing it in other cities in India at this point? This type of measurements?
I am not sure about it, like if they are doing it right now, but there are definitely other studies that have measured the PM 2.5 and other pollutant levels inside different transport modes.
And is there some follow up here in North America that you might be doing as well in terms of those tests?
I have not come across, and that should definitely be some studies that are doing. But my focus shifted from the transportation mode to indoor air quality in residential buildings. As I said earlier, in 2018, that was the time when I got the scholarship. I came to Purdue University, and it's funny because I worked as an undergrad researcher in the same lab that I'm currently doing my PhD with Dr. Boor, and that's where I started my research on indoor air quality. And then I was like, okay, fine, this is something that affects almost everyone because we spend most of our time indoor, may it be in homes, in offices, in schools. So it's like, okay, fine, this topic is much more of interest to me. So I shifted from those pollutant measurements in transportation modes to measuring the particles inside buildings.
Yeah, I mean, I was in India 7 years ago, in Delhi in particular, and this was August, about this time of year actually. And I remember we never saw the sun. It was definitely a polluted time of year. But you know that's also now with the fires in wildfires in North America and elsewhere. This is becoming a big focus of concern for people about PM 2.5 and how it affects people's health. You have any insights on that at this point?
So definitely, like the fine particles, the PM 2.5, which we talk about, which is the particulate mass for particles that are less than 2.5 micron. And we do see a lot of sources outdoor that produce this high level of PM 2.5, like wildfires. Also indoors, like some of the sources like cooking, they produce all these ultrafine particles that can contribute to respiratory burden for us. Like these fine particles can definitely go deeper into our lungs, and they can go into the tracheobronchial or even deeper into pulmonary regions that can definitely uh, cause some adverse health effects. So particularly in buildings where people spend most of their times, and also outdoors. And the buildings are also important because the outdoor air, if it's polluted, that is again being brought back into the buildings. So it's all connected. And then the human health, that we are again breathing in that air. So
And
Yeah.
we have not traditionally in the indoor environmental industry really focused on ultrafine particles. You know, because
yes.
a lot of practitioners are out there with 6-channel particle monitors, you know, and you're looking at, usually the 0.3 or 0.1 micron,
Yes.
to 10 micron is what we spend, at least as consultants, we spend a lot of time looking at that in field studies. And the ultrafines obviously, pose I think a significantly greater risk because our body really doesn't have defense mechanisms against those.
Definitely. So it's more about like the measurement techniques, I guess, for like 0.3 cutoff that is just mentioned. Most of the optical instruments can measure that, the low cost one, but for measuring these ultrafine particles, we need specialized instruments, something like SMPS, like or something that can charge these smaller particles, and then that they can be detected. But yes, these ultrafine particles are definitely because they have a much higher potency due to their very small size but higher surface area. They can carry more toxins. So they are definitely something of concern, both in outdoor
I'm
and
aware.
indoor.
I was gonna say I'm aware of too of a lot of handheld, or not some handheld technology, that coming from traditional laser particle counter manufacturing companies are going to be offering that in the not too distant future, where they will have, affordable, there's still going to be several $1,000 devices, but devices that can in real time look at, uh, you know, smaller size than the 0.1 micron size particles. I mean, currently, like the handheld stuff, it agglomerates, or that's really the way it does it. It's not really measuring the ultrafine. It's kind of agglomerating it to a 1 micron size, right? And then doing a read of that. Anyway.
So, Jordan, with your educational background in psychology and environmental engineering, you're now getting a PhD or a doctorate in philosophy, specifically on your doctorate presentations coming on indoor air quality assessment and an impact on human health and well-being. Can you just kind of describe what your research is is going to be about, and what you have found out, if anything, at this point.
Yeah. So, like I said, we spent the last 2 years developing an instrument, and in the near future, we will be testing this out with in our studies. So, the instrument essentially is a chamber that uses pollutant-free air and like particle-free air, free of excess ozone and things like that, to assess emissions from different household products. From there, we use mass spec to see what like the behaviors of the different VOCs in household products. So the first thing we want to test is like a wax warmer, see what the different like emissions are going to be like for different kinds of wax. And then we can dilute these samples, and at the different dilutions, we can put them out through a sniffing port and have participants sniff them. And from there, we will use a questionnaire to see what their perceptions are, as well as like measure different physiological factors over a short period of time. This is like a short-term study. So after about half an hour, see if their heart rate increases, blood oxygen saturation increases or decreases, and what their perception of these different scents are, and if there's like any sort of correlation between their physiological stress levels and their perceptions of these different scents. And then we can see what VOCs were present at the time. So that'll be what is coming up in the near future. Very excited about this project. As far as anything to report at the time, not quite.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's just a lot of testing of the instrument.
So what kind of instrumentation are you using to do the sniff test?
To do the sniff, so as far as like questionnaires or like as far as like
no, you mentioned that they actually are sniffing the odor, and then they're giving you their perceptions of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done some of that work. Maybe it's been a long time, but you can do like an odor panel type of thing where you basically have different people sit on a and then sniff it and then record what it is that they're doing. Is your experimentation somewhat similar to that, or is there a different take? Or
it's based off of it, kind of. We're using the Geneva odor assessment survey. And then we have a stainless steel sniffing port that was actually already manufactured that we bought that they would normally use on like a sniffing panel. And we are just using those in combination with each other, but just with like individuals on like a blind study. They won't know what's actually inside, and seeing what their perception is at different dilutions. So it is based off the odor panel, but there will be like no communication like between people. And then we'll have a smartwatch on them to measure physiological factors over time.
Is there are you specifically looking for certain people who are perhaps a little bit more sensitive to odors as part of your panel?
Not particularly, because kind of what we want to represent is like everyday use. Like everyday products and like the average person. We will be screening for if you have sensitivities to certain things, especially like allergies. And actually one of the members of my committee, a psychologist, he brought up recently to gauge if people have, if there are things that they normally just like scents or flavors or odors that they don't find pleasant that maybe other people find pleasant, to ask them beforehand. Things that they find pleasant that normal people don't, or that the average person doesn't find pleasant, and what their favorite food dishes are, to kind of screen for any sort of bias.
Right.
But we are not looking for people who are extra sensitive. We're kind of looking for like the average person. But if say this average person really likes the smell of gasoline and maybe likes things that are very similar, we will want to know that beforehand, or like Sharpie or things like that.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking, is that you're looking not necessarily for people who are extra sharp on these odors, but you certainly don't want to have people who are going to have, highly adverse reactions to the odors either.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like
that
would not, yeah.
I recently found out that I'm allergic to citronella, which is pretty popular.
Yeah, that's used a lot. Yeah.
What's fascinating too, like one of the other shows that I produced, we had Dr. Rich Corsi on, who is, and he's down in California now, right? He moved
UC Davis.
He's bounced around because he was in Portland and he went from Austin, Texas. But one of the comments that he made I thought was really fascinating on one of their previous studies, the home chem study down from Austin, University of Texas, is that what is the smell of clean in our indoor environment? There should be no smell. That's really like we've been conditioned to associate lemon fresh or these different scents and these esters that fragrances that are added to products, but that clean should be the absence of all odor, right? I mean,
yeah, like the marketing is has
It's crazy.
yeah, the marketing has such an influence on what we think is clean, like the smell of bleach. Like I personally, when something smells like bleach, I'm like, excellent, it is clean. But in no way should I be smelling bleach as often as I would like to be. Or I believe the same with like I prefer unscented like laundry detergent.
Mhm.
But that's also very like controversial. Not a lot of people. It's really hard to get unscented because people want the smell of clean laundry.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
thing is,
or
it's really not the smell of clean laundry, it's the smell
yeah,
of chemical additives that make a
mhm,
fragrance, it's not.
exactly. The smell of clouds, whatever that means.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating subject all to unto itself, and if you start getting into odor perception and odor reactions, I spent a lot of time doing that when I was a bit younger, like
Mhm.
25 years ago, for discharges from facilities. So you're taking what was done in many cases in the outdoor environment and bringing it indoor to determine what type of products are
Mhm.
going to have that kind of reaction. So that's a unique way of doing that. What do you anticipate will be the time frame for doing this experimentation?
So, like the time frame for the study overall, we are
Yeah.
looking at 1 or 2 semesters. So we're looking at this fall and spring, and after that, we're hoping that we will have everything, at least for this version of the study, that we need, and we can start at least after fall, start looking at the data, putting it together.
And I assume publish it at some point too.
Yeah, yeah, we've been working so hard. We definitely want to publish it.
Right. Great.
Mhm.
Thank you. So I had a question. Let me just get it. Satra, you have recently received a number of awards for your presentations and an ASHRAE Grant and Aid Award too for outstanding graduate students. Uh, Congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you.
and can you give us a little bit of information about the research that you conducted to be recognized for these 2 awards?
Sure. So, for the Best Student Presenter Award at the Healthy Building Conference, I presented a part of my PhD research, which was on new particle formation in residential buildings. So, new particle formation is a topic that has been extensively studied in outdoor environments, but is relatively less explored for indoor spaces. It is a two-step process that involves the formation of particles from the gas phase precursors and then their growth to larger sizes. So we conducted a field campaign here at Purdue at the Purdue ZH test house to test some of these common indoor activities such as cleaning, use of aromatherapy product, and we found out that these products can trigger indoor new particle formation. And then we found out that the formation and growth rates for these indoor new particle events are significantly higher than what is being reported for outdoor environments. So this was the part of the research that I presented at the Healthy Buildings Conference. And as it is great that this presentation received the award. For the ASHRAE Grant-In Award, I received this grant as a full-time graduate student working on research that aligns with ASHRAE's focus on high-performance building and HVAC technologies. So my planned dissertation is on indoor particle dynamics in residential buildings that spans from few nanometers to tens of micrometers. So this award was based on several evaluation criteria, including academic performance, the quality of my thesis plan, and a recommendation from my advisors.
Great. No, those are 2 outstanding awards to get, and again congratulate you on getting those. So,
Thank
but
you. Thank you.
our other shall we say guest also has received some awards recently. You had a 2023 third place award in Healthy Buildings Europe, the same conference that Savi just was talking about, and presidential excellence awardee. I assume that's from ISIAC, if I'm correct. Is that
I
right?
believe that was from Purdue. I think.
Oh, Purdue.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that was from Purdue. I think all states, or maybe not state schools, but public schools have some version of that.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
And then the final first place poster award for NSBE, which is
National Society of Black Engineers.
I see, and that was a Technical Research Expo. You got a first place in that as well. So if you could give us some description of some of the work that you had, particularly for the two posters.
Yeah, definitely. So the Healthy Buildings one was a little bit more updated, but I essentially laid out the systems that we're using for the chamber that I was speaking about earlier and how we intend to use it, which I'm really glad resonated with people because I wasn't sure if anyone was going to find that quite as interesting as I do. But essentially with that, I broke down like the different systems that we're incorporating into the chamber. We designed a relative humidity system to control the humidity that we have inside the chamber to represent what the outside air would be. But we are doing that with deionized water to make sure that it is pollutant free as far as we can get control. We have fans inside the chamber that will circulate the air. We have a temperature and relative humidity probe, so we can monitor that via lab view. 2 mass flow controllers that control the wet and dry air that go inside of the chamber. We have also purchased a zero air generator to make sure that all the air that goes in is super filtered. And then, of course, we are diluting that at different intervals and putting out through the stainless steel sniffing port and given to our participant with an IRB approval, of course, and seeing how they perceive that and how their body perceives it. So just breaking all of that down, I presented that with the posters, which again, these were my first 2 posters that I'd ever done at a conference. So I'm really glad that they resonated with people.
Oh, no, it's great. It's always good to get that feedback. And I find that, being at the conferences where you do have posters, there's a lot more interaction with the presenters and the people who are passing by, rather than in the actual presentations where people might be afraid to raise their hand and ask what they consider to be perhaps not a very bright question. You can say all the crazy things at the poster, and nobody really is recording any of it. So it kind of gives you some freedom to do that. So
yeah, I did appreciate that one-on-one interaction, especially at Healthy Buildings, where it was very niche and everyone had a pretty good idea about indoor air quality and the environment. So that was very, very nice.
And Satra, you also received a Ross Fellowship, which recognizes academic excellence with 4-year of stipend salary and tuition coverage at Purdue. You awarded that in 2020. Can you tell us more about the Ross Fellowship and what the student applicant needs to present in order to receive the award?
Sure. So I believe Ross Fellowship at Purdue, it's a recruitment fellowship. So all the incoming graduate students that apply at Purdue are automatically considered for this. It's granted by the department and is mostly evaluated based on past academic achievements and the potential to do well in graduate school. I believe my early exposure to research here at Purdue through the Purdue Undergraduate Research Experience Scholarship helped me a lot to get this award.
And as the award, did you ever find out why it was called the Ross Award? What was the name of the individual?
I have no clue about that.
Okay.
Why is it named as the Ross?
Yeah, no, usually it's somebody who's either a professor or has been a large donator or something of that nature. But it's always good to get, good to get an award of that nature. That's for sure. So that's a 4-year award too, I guess, right?
Yes, it's for the entire 4 years of my PhD.
So that will still be happening this year then for you.
Yes.
Good. And so for both of you, I'll give you both a chance. Obviously, you've both of you, because of the presentations that you've done, attended Healthy Buildings 2023 conference in Aachen, Germany. I'll start with Jordan. Can you kind of give us what your thoughts are about some of the interesting papers and presentations that you found at the conference?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I've only spoken about chambers. Like I'm a big fan of chambers. They're my favorite. But there was actually 2 groups there that also built chambers for very similar purposes as we did at Purdue. And actually, in my notes, one of them was IMT Nord Europe. They actually also designed an olfaction chamber they did more of a traditional odor profile, to my understanding. They had a panel, and they did, again, like stainless steel sniffing port, and they had a panel of panelists of judges to assess building materials that they were constructing. I think they were working towards more environmentally friendly bricks to use. I think they called them bio bricks. And they were assessing the smell and odor that these bricks were giving off, and essentially having a panel review what the impact or how positive or negative, pleasant or unpleasant that these building materials are. So I thought that was very interesting, because as far as I was aware, we were one of the only ones doing an olfaction chamber for this kind of purpose, as far as household building products. And then there was another group, the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment. They are using microchambers to look at household products. I think they were primarily looking at clothing, like raincoats and things of that nature that have like a specific material or texture to them. They were not using human participants, but they were doing mass spec to look at different VOCs that were given off by these different materials. Like, I don't want to say, like, I don't know if, but like sort of like Teflon-esque materials. And I know that they were using that data to apply to like human risk assessment as well. So I thought that was really interesting, that they were very kind of like similar studies to us, but in different variations. I was excited to talk to them and to see that.
I imagine you did some exchange with of cards, or nowadays, of course, you just do it through the phones, of course. But I'm old-fashioned that way.
some LinkedIn networking.
Networking, yeah. So how did you find the networking at that particular conference? Were you able to meet some interesting and new colleagues?
Yeah, at first, I think Satya and I were both very shocked to how small the conference was going to be. How many people was it, Satya? Like 400 or 600?
I don't remember the exact number, but yeah, it is smaller than like AGUs or something as ACS.
Yeah, when normally the ones that we go to are like 12,000 people, 13,000 people, 16,000 people. So I think at first we were like, oh, that's like really small, but it should be nice. But when you got there and you went to some of the networking events and you saw the same people over and over again, and then you'd be like, oh my gosh, I talked to that person. Now they have a very specialized talk I can go attend and talk to them afterwards, because we already have a relationship a little bit. I found it very pleasant. It was very good for networking, especially because it was a lot of the people that we work with who are overseas. Normally, some of the people that we collaborate with, it was my first time being able to meet them in person.
That's great.
Yeah, so it was very exciting. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for the next one.
Well, the next one, I believe, is one in 2024 in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we'll see if we make it to that particular conference.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll see how that goes.
Just raising my eyebrows.
Yeah, it seems it might be a little. It seems harder to get to Hawaii right now than it was to get to Germany.
Yeah. Certainly with the disaster they had with the fire there, certainly it's going to be a little bit more difficult, obviously. And it's not until 2024. I think it's September, if I remember. Bob, it's Richard Shaughnessy's postponed, multi-time postponed because of the pandemic conference that he's trying to run there. We know Richard Shaughnessy through the University of Tulsa and through a lot of other. He's the chair of that particular conference in Healthy Buildings America. So a little bit different. So Satya, how was your experience in Germany?
I learned a lot. Definitely, I learned a lot attending different talks. I initially thought there won't be much about particles. It will be about more VOCs, but I was surprised to find like there were talks about particles, about the dynamics of particles. If I remember, there was a talk from Prof. Kinnis' group from the University of Texas, where they discussed how indoor fungal communities had an overlap in different locations inside the homes. So we are currently in a project where we are collecting indoor dust, and analyzing that. So that was pretty similar. And then I really learned a lot from that presentation. Also, there were some talks about the particle dynamics, the resuspension of particles, if I remember correctly, from Prof. Listener's group at EPFL, where their group presented a mannequin-based study on the impact of clothing and airspeed on the deposition of inhalable particles. So yes, I did talk to all of them, the profs who were like we were reading their papers. Now it was a platform where I could literally talk to them and then get some ideas and then learn from whatever they are doing. So it was a great learning experience for me.
Yeah, I think that's the big advantages of conferences over even these types of webinars or webcasts. The interaction you have at a conference is, in many cases, a lot different than what you have, through Zoom or some other means.
Definitely.
So it's good to do that. So to come down to the last question, I will give it to Jordan first, and that basically is: do you have some thoughts on as to what is the future look like for research in indoor air quality, particularly the area that you're doing in the research in at this point?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people ask me how I went from psychology to engineering, and the transition seems so natural to me, like that there should be a lot of interdisciplinary research between two fields. And I think that we are going to approach a lot like a more interdisciplinary perspective going forward, looking at indoor air quality. And I think that's already happening, maybe, but perhaps like that is my bias. So I think a lot of like more collaboration between fields, specifically psychology or sociology, anthropology, and engineering, which I think will give birth to a lot of like very interesting projects similar to what I'm doing, but that has a lot of emphasis between residents and consumers, or perhaps like a lot of emphasis on like social responsibility of engineers. I think that's really, really big. And I think that's becoming more of a topic in traditional engineering for like undergraduates, like topics in their kind of like core classes. So I think it's really, really good. It's something that I look forward to a lot as I go through my career. But I also think as technology evolves, instruments will become more advanced, but communicating with collaborators, I think will also become easier. One, I think there's more ways to get access to conferences like Healthy Buildings. Before the pandemic, I was not very familiar with Zoom or video calling in any way, really, for professional uses, only for personal uses. So I think like platforms like this or Zoom have really been able to like make it very easy to access collaborators and talk to them and be able to work on projects together, joint efforts on funding and things like that. So I'm very happy to see how that's been working out in the course of like my 2 years in grad school. So I'm looking forward to seeing like how I can reach out to the people that I met at Healthy Buildings, set up a Zoom call with them, and work on projects in the future as well.
And Satya, what's your thoughts on the future of indoor air quality research?
So I guess now it's a time where more people are keen to know about the air that we are breathing. So as this awareness grows, there's definitely going to be a lot more data collection. So we will see an influx of huge data sets, like what we are doing in different measurement campaigns, different groups across the world. They are collecting data to know more about what is in the air. So with all this data, like machine learning and AI will certainly come into this indoor air quality community, where we will be using machine learning to make sense of this data and then to visualize this data, identify patterns, and then come up with solutions that are tailor-made for specific environments. So the possibilities are definitely endless as people are collecting more data. As Jordan mentioned, a collaboration between different groups. It's like exchanging data. It will be definitely a data-rich, interdisciplinary field, and it will involve definitely the use of machine learning and AI in the future.
And that makes total sense too, because it seems like there's been obviously a plethora of research over the past decade in indoor environmental, but it's siloed, right? I mean, different universities, different studies, everything's, and it's not, and there really hasn't been a great way to extrapolate, broadly across all the information that's out there. So, I think AI probably will come into play largely on that to be able to
Yep.
really look at larger data sets and probably be more meaningful. So.
There are definitely a lot of online communities for outdoor data quality. So I believe as like more and more people will collect indoor data, there might come up something similar where we can have some kind of online networks of indoor data which can transfer, talk to each other, and like see the bigger picture of it. That's all really exciting.
I mean, I have to, Don, I'd be remiss if I didn't throw out the fact that, the global community platform that we've set up, which is free now, is, would afford you that opportunity to set up a space
Oh,
and actually have that community
great.
amongst, researchers around the world to be able to share data and actually even video chat in real time on it and everything. So that's one of the things that we've been really pushing hard with Healthy Indoors is to create that space, because there really isn't a space collectively where it's a repository, but more importantly a space where people can actually get together and meet. So yeah, so stay tuned with that too.
Yeah, and I'll also put in a little plug here for both of you to consider two organizations that I've been associated with for many years that do a lot of indoor air quality work, but are not necessarily specifically research, although research is a big part of one of them. And that's ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. They have a program each year that they look at current applications for research into a variety of different units of, for example, in heating and ventilation, but also in indoor air quality. And those grants can go up to as much as $2 million a year. So it's something that you might want to consider getting on there and seeing what's what, because obviously, part of the game is getting the money in so that you can do the research you want to do. And so getting a proper application in would be good. The other one is American Industrial Hygiene Association. Jordan, I heard the number of different professionals that you included in what you think should be the future. I would ask you to consider definitely including industrial hygienists as part of that group. They are now in the process of doing something called the Grand Challenges, and their Grand Challenges go from 15 to 20 years from now. There's a lot of strategic planning as well, but one of the things that's coming up is the inequality in exposures, which is definitely a big issue in many places. So you might want to consider at least looking at their web pages and, hey, attend one of their conferences too. You never know what you might run into in terms of people that are talking about these topics. So
yeah, and is their acronym AIHA?
AIHA, yes. So their website would be aiha.org. And you can certainly get in there, and there's technical committees specifically on indoor environmental quality, but also a number of other factors as well. And it's a I would say a forward-looking type of organization, because they have people who have done this type of work for many years, going back as far back as the 1930s in this area. And it's important to have the interaction between the various groups in that regard. That's one of the reasons why we do this particular broadcast, is to allow people to hear different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So before we close out, I'll give you both an opportunity to express yourself as to what you're thinking is important right now. What are the three most important things that you would want to get across in terms of the research that you're doing? I'll start with Jordan.
Oh man, I was hoping you'd start with Satya. You brought up a little bit of the organization that you're speaking about, talking about inequality. Definitely a bridge between what I was interested in psychology and engineering is that I started to learn a lot in my undergrad about environmental justice and environmental inequality, which eventually led me to look into how I can study the built environment and its impact on people, specifically in health. So I guess the most important things that I would say to look at right now is how, as individuals, we can address environmental inequality in the places that we live. I'm from South Florida, where there's a lot of hurricanes.
Yes, right now, in fact.
Right, as we speak, in fact. A lot of hurricanes and natural disasters don't affect everybody equally, as we know from Maui and as we know from hurricanes, especially things that happen like Hurricane Katrina. So I would encourage everybody, and I think even in indoor air quality, it does not affect everybody equally. Some people still have like lead paint in their apartments and homes. So I would encourage everyone to look at the topics that have to do with the environments near them and how they can become active in addressing problems in their own societies. But as far as indoor air quality, I would encourage everybody to be very mindful about what is absolutely necessary to be fragranced in their homes. Like if you
Okay.
really need to use the lemon scented product on your floors, or if you can use a non-scented one, and then if you can open your windows afterwards and try to get the air moving, I would encourage everybody to consider this idea.
Yeah, open the windows except when they have wildfires. Don't open them then.
Yeah, the wildfires actually really got to us here in Indiana.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
I mean,
They sure
well,
did.
and that's truly like Don, you hit on that the paradigm with that. Like in North America, in the United States especially, we've always had this mindset of fresh outside air, but that's not always the case. Right in India, in China, and in many places, and now in North America with the wildfires, the outside air often is not better than the inside air, and it's really not a good strategy to make the indoor environment better. So
So,
a little bit of
Satra,
a
what are your
paradigm.
free thoughts in terms of what the future is going to bring in indoor air quality?
So I would say like better ventilation, definitely. Like have good ventilated indoor spaces. Maybe use of more portable air cleaners that have good quality, like HEPA filters that can basically clean out the indoor air that we are breathing in. Because uh, we never know, like a lot of things that we use, like the scented products, like common household activities like cooking, cleaning, all these do create a lot of new particles that can grow into this ultrafine particles that we breathe in. So we should be mindful of what we are using indoors, and like source elimination if that's not a thing that we can really achieve right now, but definitely some control measures like get good ventilation, use some of these portable air cleaners. And so keeping track of all this, and if possible track your indoor air quality, not just PM 2.5 which people always track on, because this is heavily like uh, dominated by the larger particles, but also the ultrafine particles. See how the particle levels are for the sub 100 nanometers. So it's about the awareness of people to go from, okay, fine, we have a metric of PM 2.5, but also there are some other like ultrafine particles, sub 10 nanometer particles. So we have to look as a holistic picture of the entire particle spectrum, and then understand it better, and then prevent it using all those prevention like techniques.
Well, I thank you both for appearing today. I like the ideas that you came up with, and I'm glad that you're thinking of those areas because I agree with you. There's a lot out there that needs to be dealt with, and we just haven't had a chance to do it. You're at the forefront of this right now. The type of research you're doing is going to be very important for a lot of people who are doing field investigations right now. So thank you very much for what you do, and I hope you've had a good time talking to us today.
Yes, thank you for
Yes,
having us.
thank you for having us. It was great.
It's
So, Bob?
relatively painless. It's a painless program.
Yeah, exactly. We're not too
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. We're not really investigative journalists, so we're not going to grill you too hard. So again, reminding everyone that this broadcast, was a joint collaboration between ISIAC, the International Society of Indoor Air Quality and Climate, and the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance, which of course my co-host Don is the president still. Yeah, Don, who is supposedly retired and is on more committees than any retired person I've ever seen in my life. It's like, if that's retired, I hate to think of what your actual work schedule was before you're retired.
It was a lot simpler. I just went into the office. Now I have
Yeah,
these type of
right.
conversations with people all over the world.
Yeah.
So it's been really great. So thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time, probably next month.
So we'll be back again with the Indoor Environment Show at a not too distant future date. I'm not even sure what the next date is, but usually it's once a month ish.
Once a month.
Right around.
Once a month.
And
So we're
usually
looking
ends
at.
around 11 a.m. Eastern time, U.S. time, UTC -5. Like you really need to know that. And again, remember you can catch all the shows by going to the Healthy Indoors online global community platform, and that's again global.healthyindoors.com. All the shows reside there. All are back, so it'll be 21 episodes there now, and a lot of other great stuff. So by all means. So until next time, stay healthy, and we'll see you all soon.
You too, if you could stay for a second after the show is closed out. Appreciate it.